Hey everybody,
I'm Stephanie,
and this is Chris.
and welcome to our story.
All right, today we're going to be talking about long distance real estate investing.
Yeah.
So this was a difficult subject for us because one of the major hurdles I had to overcome in the beginning was figuring out how I was going to kind of expand from buying real estate where we lived to other markets. Because when we first got started, we bought a couple doors where we lived, and it went well, extremely well.
And it was expensive.
It was expensive.
Yes.
But I wanted to expand on it. I wanted to continue to stay in that expensive market.
Mm-hmm.
And I must have put in 7 to 8 offers.
Yeah.
And every last one I got outbid
Not one.
or they fell through.
Yeah.
And Stephanie came and she was like, hey, maybe this may not be for us. Maybe we should widen our net.
Right.
And then she went and watched a documentary about another market that was doing really well. And I'm like, okay, well, let's look in that market. We didn't eventually go into that market,
Right.
but we found a place to invest that was really far from where we lived.
Mm-hmm.
So then we had to start overcoming some of the obstacles associated with that.
Well, we want to say why that was, though, right? Because it stretched our dollar a lot further,
Oh, yeah.
right? This particular market.
We found that in the market that we were in, where we were living in,
Mm-hmm.
it was extremely expensive because
Yeah.
everyone wanted to live there.
Right.
But in some of these other markets, we can probably buy 3 or 4 houses for the price of one.
Right.
But we would get the same amount of revenue off each house. So
Insane.
basically what I'm saying is, I would say, for example, get $1,000 off of one investment here if I was renting it out, or 30 grand off selling the house here. And if I can go to the other city and do this, buy 3 houses and get that same return on each individual property.
Oh, yeah.
So it made sense for us to kind of open up our horizons. To just basically look for houses outside of where we were living.
Right.
But there were some major obstacles that had to be overcome.
Yeah.
For example, the first one is we didn't know anything about this city.
No.
We didn't know what neighborhoods were good, what neighborhoods were bad.
None of that.
So we had to kind of fill those gaps in. We had to follow the numbers, follow the data. Look at the crime reports, look at the city's expansion plans, call local realtors and see what advice they had to offer. And I think Stephanie can speak to that, because sometimes you'll find out when you're operating in the area in which you don't live, people have different agendas, and that agenda may not line up with yours,
Absolutely. I remember one time you were at work that time, and we had decided, we saw a couple of properties that we liked, and we kind of zeroed in on 1 or 2 properties in particular. And it was my job to kind of get in contact with the realtor and kind of see if they what bids were on the property, and if we could kind of put a bid in. So I did. I called the realtor, and really it was a lot of detailed communications. That's what I tell Krishan. It's like when you're operating long distance, we probably communicate twice as often, and we have to be twice as detailed on every conversation or every email or every text message. In this particular situation, I was just getting my feet wet, just learning the game and how it all worked, and I didn't realize that the real estate agent that listed the property was working for the people who were trying to sell the property. And not until we got further in, I made the bid, we were working toward, getting into the details of everything, is when I realized. She said, okay, do you have a realtor? And obviously I didn't. So she was able to work both ends. And then we talked about, getting a title company to do the title, and real estate attorneys. And I felt like I was completely over my head with it. So, you can imagine working in the particular city you live in and kind of being able to kind of stop by, right? And talk to these folks and things like this. And, I was just kind of grasping at straws, just kind of like trying to figure it all out, because Krishan's not going to always be there, right? I have to be able to kind of pick it up and move on with it. And so, unfortunately, we didn't get that property, but by the end of that day, I kind of figured out how everything worked. And so I became, an expert overnight, so to speak. Not really, but yeah. And so now, then I understood like what I needed. But in that instance, I kind of walked away with it, and I kind of told Krishan that, hey, I think I called that lady like 30 times today, and we emailed like over and over and over again. And I realized then that if you're doing something long distance, you definitely have to put in twice the effort.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point, because when doing this, there's such things as the stupid questions, but there's also such thing as the question that costs you money and the question that saves you money.
Yes.
And I am a firm believer, if someone I'm doing business with says a term or says something that I don't understand, oh, please believe I have no shame in asking them to slow down and explain exactly what they meant. Because I think that in communications, there's what you said and what I heard, and I want to make sure both of those things line up.
Right.
So and another thing that came up with us is just the lack of time. It takes so much more time when you're dealing with properties outside of where you actually are.
It does.
Like she said, if we were in town, we know the local realtor, we know the local real estate attorneys and
the title companies.
The title companies. We know these people, so it's easy just to put a phone call. Hey, this is someone. So we have this relationship. I've seen you at out and about around town. But when you're out of town, you don't have that. You have to really depend on what you find on the internet and what the connections that you already have made are telling you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I will say that we have several challenges when it comes to just the structure of our family and what we do for a living. And then on top of that, I don't know that we really thought it completely through. I know I didn't think it completely through. I thought, let's go to this city and let's invest in this city because we can stretch our money and we can get way more than what we could in this city. I don't think we knew what we were kind of taking on. Another layer to already the complexities that, we were dealing with. Would you say that?
Yeah, I agree. I really don't think that, aside from doing it, you can analyze the market, you can look at all the data, but until you're actually out there, with your foot on the pedal, you don't really know what you're getting yourself into. Now, I'm not saying don't do it.
Right.
It's been a heck of a ride. It's been a really fun ride. So definitely get out there and do it.
And a learning experience. I think we've had tons and tons of learning experiences as well. Didn't you want to talk about having to fly down? I know that's one of the major, because I don't fly. Yeah. So Krishan would get on the airplane to go to the grocery store if he could. I tell him that all the time. I'm like, God, you like to fly everywhere. I'm like, but I'm not a flyer. So the place we do our taxes and everything is on the East Coast, and he has to fly down and take care. You can tell him to take care of that business.
Yeah. But that's another thing. Sometimes there's blessing in disguise. It's like they said, she doesn't fly. I love to travel. So, but working from a distance allows you to outsource a lot of the things that you would have spent a lot of time on doing in person. Yeah. Like the CPA, I can email her that stuff and just show up once a year, just to verify, give that face to face, so we have a understanding what both parties are saying. But being able to not travel, because I think that one thing that I learned early on is that I had to outsource some things, because if I spend all my time working on stuff that's money's already been made, I'm just trying to improve our current situation.
Right.
I have no time left to go out there and find different opportunities that can bring more money into the house. So I think it's really important to understand what should be outsourced and what you should take onto your own plate. So, and traveling was one of them. I may travel down there once or twice a year, just when I'm extremely needed, because it's expensive to fly from the West Coast to the East Coast and back. So,
and to check on the properties. I mean, sometimes it's just good to put your eye on it. That's what the old people say in South Carolina. Let you put your eye on something and just kind of make sure it's up to your standards, right?
That's important, because pictures can say one thing.
Oh yes,
but your eyes can say something totally different.
I've seen that. Yeah, it's crazy the difference. Yeah.
Being on site, using all 5 of your senses, to really experience your property is really important. I look at it. I look at it and I say, hey, listen, is this property where it needs to be? Would I feel comfortable sleeping, eating, living here?
Yeah.
That's why I say go down there at least once a year to see your properties, so you can sit in front of the person that you've outsourced this work to, so they can
make sure they're doing
build that relationship.
What they're supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Because it's one thing to have a virtual relationship and another thing to have a face-to-face relationship.
Right.
Now,
absolutely.
Luckily, the people that we've attached ourselves with are super friendly people.
Yeah, we got lucky.
These are people that I would, sit down and break bread with. So I have no problem doing business with them, which is another thing. Understand that everyone has a reputation. And if someone's reputation is saying one thing, but talking to them and engaging with them saying something different, that's a red flag.
Oh yeah.
People don't change too much. If the streets, the old saying where I'm from is when them streets get to talking, they probably telling the truth. So listen to your gut, listen to their reputation, and try to outsource work to people who have a great reputation. Yeah. Like I said in another video, try to outsource to another organization. If you can find a website who typically does this work, or a company, They have reviews. Use them. It may cost you a little extra, but you know, a short-term savings can be a long-term expense. So keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Yep. I will say I'm so glad that we're doing this video because, you know, a lot of people can offer experience from the standpoint of being in the same city. I mean, I know people who've never lived or even been vacationed outside of the city that they live in. And we're telling you that we move around. We've lived everywhere, right? We've been in different cities, different states, and lived everywhere. And we've got businesses and places everywhere. And I mean, it's pretty challenging, and it's just nice for you out there listening to kind of see that we've come up against a lot of challenges, a lot of hurdles, and we found a way. Not saying it's easy because it's challenging, but we found a way to get over. We've turned all of our obstacles into opportunities, and I actually have a video on my channel about that, and just some of the personal obstacles that I've overcome. But that shows you that you can do it. Yeah, you can do this.
If you put in the work, you can do it. I want to leave you with a story that happened with us. So one of the properties that we did maybe last year, we got it for an amazing price. And usually you get what you pay for.
Usually.
So of course I flew down because I wanted to see this property for myself. When you get a property at that price, you got to go see it for yourself. You want to put hands on it.
Oh yeah.
So I personally went down there, looked at the property, personally hand selected the contractors I wanted to see in person, you know, how they were bidding their work, you know, because sometimes I don't get an opportunity to do that.
Right.
And they're giving me their bids. One bid was extremely low. Other bid was run of the mill, and one bid was a little high. The other bid had a great reputation, but it was higher than the rest. So what I did was, of course, I eliminated the lowest bid because that was just ridiculous. You know, I kind of foreseen the trouble on the horizon with that one. And I went with the person with the good reputation who cost a little more because I wanted to ensure that when I was on the other side of the country, I had somebody who was reliable, who could stand in as my agent to make sure everything got done. And sure enough, when she was finished with that project,
she did it.
She did a phenomenal job. I couldn't have done it better if I was there every day. So last thing I want to say is that we're extremely grateful for all the people that we have relied on in the past. Absolutely. That has brought us so much prosperity and so much happiness.
Absolutely. And we just want to thank you for watching and thank you for supporting our channel and what we love to do. It just means so much to us for each and every one of you that takes the time to listen to the things that we have to say. Maybe take something from it and learn something from it. And don't forget to do something nice for someone today, and you can do it.
And don't forget, we're just ordinary people trying to do extraordinary things.
I love it.